If you're a gigging musician and you're fed up of carrying a load of gear everywhere with you, maybe it's time to think about replacing your rig. Now, I was personally a little reluctant to think about this kind of thing myself because I'm someone who's always enjoyed taking loud amps and lots of pedals to a gig. But my friends at Line 6 challenged me to see if I could replace my entire live rig with just the HX Stomp XL. And I did it. I took this out for some gigs, this unit alone, so no amps, no other pedals. The only other thing I added was a DI box because the HX Stomp XL does not have an XLR output. And in this video, we're going to explore the results of what happened. Now, I know for a lot of guitar players, replacing your entire rig with a single multi-effects unit can be quite a controversial topic. And I completely understand because I personally was also reluctant to think about that myself. Even though in recent years I have really scaled my gear down, especially for a lot of the gigs I'm doing these days where I'm not needing a live amp on stage, I've still been using quite a lot of pedals. But like I said, my friends at Line 6 challenged me to see if I could literally fit my entire rig into the HX Stomp XL, and I took them up on the challenge. I've been a fan of the helix stuff for a long time, especially for studio work, but for live, I've always just preferred the more tactile feel of having real pedals in front of me. That is until I realized how great this thing is. So like I said, we're going to take a deep dive into this in this video and find out what I did to recreate my live rig. Just before we dig into the process of what I did to recreate my rig in the HX Stomp XL, I just have to let you guys know this is a sponsored video, so Line 6 are paying me to create this video, and they have provided me with the pedal as well for the purpose of creating this video. As always, all the thoughts and opinions in the video are my own. Okay, so as I said, I've always been a big fan of using a lot of gear. When I was gigging a lot with live amps, I used to take at least one amp. I did quite like a stereo setup from time to time, but usually I would restrain myself to take a single combo. But I'd always have quite a big pedal board with a bunch of my favorite pedals on. So to downsize to something like this was quite a big challenge for me because I like having a lot of options available. But what this process really showed me was what my core sounds were and basically a way of packing them into a single box. So I'm going to throw up some photos on the screen now so you can see some of the bigger pedalboard rigs I've used in the past, just to give you an idea of what I was working with before downsizing to this. So as I briefly mentioned at the start of the video, the only additional thing I've added to this entire rig is this DI box here. And the reason I've added this DI box is because a lot of the gigs I'm doing at the moment, we're going straight into the PA system. So there's no live amps on stage. I can do that from the HX Stomp XL, but it only has 1/4-inch jack outputs. And for me, it's just a little bit easier if I can show up at a venue and get an XLR feed to the sound guy. So I've added a DI box basically just to give me an XLR output that I don't have available to me on the HX Stomp. So Line 6, that would be quite a cool addition. If you are going to be doing any tweaks to the HX Stomp XL, adding an XLR out would be an incredible update for any gigging musicians. But other than that, everything else is within this unit. So the only purpose of this, as I said, is just an output feed. So first of all, I'm just going to play some clips from one of the performances that I recorded with the HX Stomp XL. So what you're going to be hearing is a blend of the audio from my camera coupled with a guitar feed from the headphone out of the HX Stomp XL into my Tascam DR60, which is an SD card audio recorder. So I'm going to be blending in the camera audio, which is obviously the in the room sound. The guitar is very quiet in that because there's no onstage volume. You're just hearing a little bit of spill from the PA. So most of the guitar signal you're hearing is from the Tascam, which is from the headphone out of the HX Stomp. So it's fully affected. It'll sound exactly the way that it would have come out of the front of house. Alright, so those clips you just saw were from a corporate gig that I did recently with two very good friends of mine, Chris ALLAN on drums and Johnny Oates on vocals and rhythm guitar. Two great musicians, so please go check those guys out as well. I'll stick some links to some of their social pages down below in the description. They're great guys and great players, so go check those out. But for this gig, the brief we were given was we had to do a very versatile set ranging from some classic rock stuff through to some indie rock, some pop, a bit of everything really. But we had to have a very scaled back setup. So these kind of corporate gigs, often you're showing up with an in-house PA system, so the less we can give the sound guys to do, the better. So my entire rig was the HX Stomp XL. So I'm going to talk you through a little bit about what I've done. So you'll see the HX Stomp XL on screen right now. So everything you're hearing is coming from this unit. All of my tones, my drive tones, my effects, my reverb, and my amp signal are all from this one patch. The guitar I'm playing right now is my Jackson Adrian Smith SDX. This isn't the guitar that I actually used in the footage you saw. This is just a really versatile guitar for the purpose of showing what I've done here. So I'm going to go right from the start. So my core tone with everything off. So we've got a US Deluxe amp, which is a Fender twin style amp. That is running completely clean. I've also got a hall reverb. And I've also got an EQ that is already on. So this EQ is giving me a slight boost in the low and a slight boost in the high with a very, very mild mid scoop, just to sort of sculpt the tone a little bit more. So this is my core sound. I've not assigned the amp, the reverb, or the EQ to any of the foot switches. This is just constantly running throughout. So I'm treating that as if it's just an amp on stage where I'm not actually going to be tweaking it. So that is just a really basic clean tone. So I'll just play a bit so you can hear what that tone sounds like. So that's a pretty standard clean tone. There's nothing too crazy going on there. I wanted it to be pretty neutral because I was using a couple of different guitars for the show, ranging from humbuckers to P90s to single coils. So I just needed a good solid platform to build everything else up on top of. So really I went for something as flat as possible with some nice reverb and a little bit of top end presence just to give me some sparkle. So that was my core tone. So let's imagine that is my amp. So the reverb, the EQ, and the amp sound are all preset at that. So these 6 foot switches are now assigned to 6 different effects. So if we go into the stomp box view, I've got my tuner built into this under my tap tempo. So obviously when I'm tuning live, I can just hold that down and tune as normal. I'm not engaging the mode switch for this because I'm just using this as a series of stomp boxes. So I have 6 different stomp boxes assigned. So when I was building this, I thought about what the core pedals that I use are. So for me, I have 3 different drives, but I would treat this as 2 drives. On this foot switch here, I have the Minotaur, which is their version of the Clon. And on these 2 foot switches here, I have the variations of the Prince of Tone pedal. The reason I went for 2 different ones here is because on my main pedal board, I have the King of Tone, but inside the Helix, the King of Tone model, you can't have the independent switching between both sides. So you can only have both sides on or off, or you can preset it for one or the other. So it made sense for me to actually set each of these up as a single Prince of Tone, so I could treat it like a King of Tone. So I've got a lower gain side and a higher gain side. For lead, I've also assigned a 3 to 5 dB boost on this foot switch here. I do change that up depending on the sound on the day. So that is kind of open for interpretation. I think it's preset to 3, but I do crank that up to 5 on some stages. Then I've got a short slapback delay, which is a vintage style delay, but then I can control the tap tempo of that with this switch. And then I've also got a chorus added. So for me, those 6 things are pretty much all I need to get through a gig. I don't actually use the chorus and the delay too much. Those are just there as textural things for me to use at very specific points of the gig. So my main tone would be a combination of my clean tone with a drive of some sort. So if I wanted to play something low again, I would use the Minotaur. And then I have the option of stacking things on top of that. So that's where the two different King of Tone sides come in. So like I said, I'm using the Prince of Tone model, which is the Heir Apparent. The King of Tone version is the Tone Sovereign, which also takes up more DSP. So I thought it also made sense to use two models that use less DSP as well. So that gives me more stacking options. Instead of just turning one thing on and having both sides, I can actually choose which side I want. So I would maybe stack my lower gain side like this. Or I could stack my high gain side. Or I could stack both of those together, so I could turn the Minotaur off. Or even stack all three together. And that gives me a ton of different gain options. So just between those three drives alone, I was pretty satisfied with the gain options I had to get through the gig. I could get through everything from like a light crunch, especially if I paired it with a single coil pickup and the clon. And then I could obviously stack in some of the high gain stuff if I was playing more classic rock with a humbucker. And yeah, that pretty much gave me everything I needed. So then I've just got textural stuff to worry about. So I would treat those three as separate drive tones that I would mix and match with my clean tone for different results and different kind of gain levels. Then I'd use my back three settings as textural things. So like I said, I've got this one set up as a boost. So really this is just boosting the volume. But when you pair that with gain, then obviously it becomes a lead boost. So let's say I'm playing with a medium gain sound. That would function as my lead boost. So that's pretty self-explanatory. It's just a 3 to 5 dB boost that I would switch in and out depending on what venue I'm using. I may put a bit more gain there if I need a bit more presence or a bit more push through the mix. But usually 3 to 5 is enough just to lift you above the band. So now onto some of the textural stuff. So I've got the Bucket Brigade delay. This is like the Boss DM2 style, very kind of vintagey, really sort of distorted, echoey repeats. I prefer that kind of delay over like a pristine sort of digital delay. I definitely love that vintage analog delay sound. So I use this just as a slapback that I might kick in and out for different solos, or just if I'm playing something that needs a little bit of a textural thing. So you can hear there's just a really short slap on that. It works great just to fatten things up. I don't tend to use it too much as a delay effect, more of just that thickening thing. So if I'm playing some chords that I want it to be quite spacey sounding, I would use it for that sort of thing, but I would also combine it then with the chorus. So the chorus on its own is kind of like an 80s chorus because, you know, if you've seen any of my other videos, you know I am an 80s tone fan. So I've got a little bit of an 80s chorus sound, even though I am using the 70s chorus mode of the helix. Love that sort of swooshy 80s chorus thing. I would also combine that with the delay for some really ambient stuff. So you can really get some interesting spacey textures there as well. So we did some sections in the gig where we were just jamming some ambient stuff between songs as well. So I would use that sort of setting for that. So really you can see I can get a lot of different tones from very little. And the interesting thing with that was it did make me think about the gear that I choose to take to gigs myself, because I guess I really have been overkilling it with the amount of gear that I do take. This has really opened my eyes to that a little bit more. I would also use the textural stuff, the delay and the chorus, with a lead guitar tone as well. So let's say I've got a gainy tone, and I'm playing some lead. And I want to do something a little bit different with that. I may kick on some delay. Or some chorus. Or both. Which is a very 80s guitar tone, but, you know, I love 80s guitar tones, so that kind of works for me. So yeah, that is really it in a nutshell. That is what I boiled my core needs as a guitar player down to. I managed to replace my whole rig with just the HX Stomp XL, and I have to say, I really liked the way it sounded. So I was a bit skeptical at first because I thought maybe there's going to be a couple of pedals that I'm going to miss, or maybe a few tones here and there that I would usually want to hear in a gig. And I realized as soon as I started playing, I forgot all about those things. And I just focused on the core sounds of the rig and how it sounded. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. Would you guys ever replace your entire rig with something like the HX Stomp XL? I did, and I have to say, I'm really glad I did. And since I tested this out, I've actually not gone back. I've actually gigged this quite a few times since then, and this, for the foreseeable future, will probably be remaining as my go-to setup for live gigs where I'm not taking an amp, because I'm really happy with the sound of this, and I think it sounds great. If you want to check out the patch for this, there's a link for that down below in the description as well. You can get your hands on my sort of direct-to-PA live tone patch. Let me know what you guys think of it. Test it out on your own HX Stomps as well. This will also work on full-size helix, but obviously you won't have the Footswitch routing the way I've got it set up. If you've got a HX Stomp XL, you'll be able to download the patch straight away. If you're using a regular HX Stomp, not the XL one, this probably won't work because I have utilized the full DSP capabilities of the XL for this as well. But the patch is down below if anyone wants to check that out. Thank you guys for watching. As always, let me know down below in the comments if you would ever consider replacing your entire live rig with a single multi-effects pedal. I'm going to leave you now with a couple more clips from that show just to hear this thing in action a little bit more, because like I said, I'm really happy with it. I'm really enjoying the scaled back approach and having a much smaller rig. And also it's just much easier to load in and out. There's less to set up and less to worry about. So yeah, I'm going to throw a few more clips out there now for you guys to check out. Let me know what you think down below in the comments. While you're down there, don't forget to hit the like and the subscribe button, and I'll see you guys very soon. Thanks so much for watching.